Welcome back to the final part of my region lock using flying type only. In the description, you can find a link to the playlist if you have yet to see previous videos. In this video, I will take on the Elite Four in all 4 regions of the Monolocke Challenge in the online game Pokemmo. I will use my Scyther with its super effective moves towards dark and fighting trainers, and my Honchkrow with its better attack stat and ability to crit to take on the ghost and psychic trainers. I will also use my Skarmory with its stealth rock to break Pokemon with sturdy ability or holding focus sashes to set up my glass cannon for potential sweeps. I will also use my Gyarados with its intimidate ability to lower the attack of the foe and set up for a sweep with Dragon Dance, Glisker with its ability to switch and pivot safely over to other flying types thanks to being immune to electric. Sometimes it can also take them out with powerful ground stab moves. Noctowl, holding eject button, has great special bulk and decent physical bulk which makes it ideal to use as pivot for my glass cannons when I've set up to sweep with them. On the Dark Trainer, Grimsley, I had to play around Crocodile's Intimidate, but eventually I found an opening to send in Scyther and sweep the remaining Dark Pokemons, Scrafty, Bisharp, and Crocodile with close combat. For Chantel, the Ghost Trainer, I began the battle by leading with Skarmory to set up Stealth Rock. Despite knowing that Skarmory would have only 1 life remaining after Chandelure's Flamethrower, I forgot to equip a Rost Berry for this battle in case of burn. However, I was not punished for this mistake, nor the mistake of misclicking Scyther and having to switch into Honchkrow on a Flamethrower, before sweeping her team with Night Slash on all the Pokemons. For Caitlyn, the Psychic Trainer, I began the battle by leading with Skarmory, however Caitlyn lead with her Gothitelle, which had super effective Thunderbolt for my Skarmory. This allowed me to manipulate the AI by switching into Glisker at the second turn on the Thunderbolt. Glisker baited a Psychic move which made it possible for Honchkrow to switch in on the third turn. Now at full health, Honchkrow could safely stay in to take a Meteor Mash from the Metagross and take it out in 2 turns while one hit knocking out everything else with Night Slash. With 3 trainers down and 1 remaining, I was eager to finish the 4th battle without any hiccups, but not as eager to face the champion, N. The fighting trainer, Marshall, led with his regenerator Mincheo. I began the battle by setting up Stealth Rocks with my Skarmory. Skarmory took the jump kicks well enough that it was not at risk of a critical hit, so I decided to set up spikes with roosts between in order to stay out of critical hit range before finally switching into my Scyther. With a ×4 resistance to fighting moves, Scyther did not take much damage and was able to one-hit knock out the entire team of Marshall comfortably with Acrobatic. For the final Pokemon, Lucario, Scyther used close combat, and that sealed the deal. The Elite Four was beaten. It is time to go look for the Unova champion, Alder, or whomever it might be. Who am I kidding? Anyone watching this series already knows this, N is the secret champion, and even in your first playthrough, you probably knew this. Before taking him on, I would have to catch a legendary dragon to prove myself worthy to challenge him. However, this dragon is not a flying type, so I don't want to use it. It will still be forced upon me and put as my lead, so what I allow myself to do with this is to Volt Switch out of the fight turn 1, and then later in the fight, I will only use it as a pivot switch, but never let it use a move. I am still fighting 2 back-to-back fights with 5v6 against the 2 strongest trainers in this story playthrough. And all I have is basically a tanky Pokedoll, but I don't want to use moves with, so whenever I switch it in and it survives, I need to switch out to something that can take the attack intended for this dragon. I couldn't even Master Ball this stupid dragon. Luckily, after an Earthquake from Glisker, it stayed inside my first Ultra Ball before killing anything from my team. N's Reshiram would critical hit my Togekiss turn 1, forcing me to roost rather than Calm Mind, or risk a second crit taking me out. Seeing how I healed as much as he could do with Fusion Flare, N switched to Archeops same turn as I clicked Calm Mind to better take the next Fusion Flare. I switched into Skarmory to better take his Archeops attacks, as he used Flying Gem boosted Acrobatic. As I set up Stealth Rock, he switched back to Reshiram with its Fire attack. At this point, I had to dodge yet another critical hit with Togekiss, and roost up to keep a chance to not lose anything here. Being in red health, any moves from Reshiram would kill if I were not faster, and this is the reason it went with Psychic. which left me safely out of kill range.
The battle went into sort of a stalemate situation where I would slowly regain health and set up to be able to take out his Reshiram while Stealth Rock potentially deterring N's AI from switching as frequently.
With Reshiram down, and Archeops in yet again, I switched to Skarmory to keep my Togekiss, who is slower, alive for later opportunities. N switched Archeops for Archeops, and not being fooled by this trick, I went back to Togekiss expecting the Flamethrower and used Calm Mind to prepare for it. As it revealed its true identity with its Night Daze, I broke its illusion with Aura Sphere and took out the Zoroark. With Archeops taking residual damage from switching in on Stealth Rock, activating its Defeatist ability, I was able to use other Pokemons besides Skarmory to properly deal with it. I decided to first set up spikes with Skarmory, and then sent in his Klinklang. Expecting an electric attack, I switched to Glisker and took it out with Earthquake. Against Vanillite, I used Eject Button from Noctowl to switch into Swellow and took it out with a Guts-boosted Facade. Just when things were going smoothly for me, and sent in Caracosta. My team had no sure way to take it out from full health, and to make matters worse, Caracosta had a 50% chance to pick Stone Edge or Waterfall for my Skarmory, making it impossible to send in Glisker or Togekiss to take it out. A Waterfall could put me close to the kill range of Aqua Jet, while Earthquake has a 61 to 73% chance to take it out. My Togekiss wouldn't be able to take Stone Edge at all, and even a Waterfall could put it in range of an Aqua Jet. My solution was to stall out Waterfall and Stone Edge PPs, which I've sped up to avoid a boring viewing experience for you. Finally, with Caracosta picking Aqua Jet, I switched over to Togekiss, and outside range of a critical knockout, I roost up to a comfortable health before taking it out with a Calm Mind boosted Aura Sphere, so that I would be outside the kill range of Archeops Acrobatics just in case it was needed. N was down to his final Pokemon, Archeops, which was still faster and had some Stone Edge PPs remaining. Skarmory was no longer in a state where it could take multiple Stone Edges, and maybe not even a Stone Edge followed by an Acrobatic, so instead, I started using Zekrom into Glisker switches to PP stall the remaining Stone Edges. Eventually Zekrom would go down, and I would roost spam with Glisker barely staying out of crit range and being able to slowly chip Archeops down to 50% health so I could activate its Defeatist and more comfortable chip it down and defeat N. This fight could have been much smoother if I were able to use 6 of my own Pokemons, and the hardest part about defeating N was the fact that I had to play around Zekrom. I was happy about defeating the champion, but I was not entirely out of the woods. Getsus did not approve of me being the new region champion without him having a fight as well. Unfortunately, the program I used to record this playthrough only allow for 30 minutes clips at most. I noticed in the fight that this was happening and had to start the recording mid-fight with 2 of his Pokemons down. I anticipated the Cofagrigus to use Will-O-Wisp, and switched into Swellow turn 1, a Brave Bird put the Cofagrigus below 10% and I thought a U-turn would finish the Cofagrigus, but losing the Guts ability to Mummy, Cofagrigus lived with less than 2%, but didn't do much to Togekiss before going down to Togekiss the next turn. A few Calm Minds on Hydreigon meant that Togekiss was set to sweep the rest of Getsus' team. I've managed to beat Unova, the first of 4 Elite Fours, without losing a single Pokemon despite having a very tough battle with N and this champion AI tendency to switch, and could move on to Hoenn. Sydney specializes in Dark types, a perfect matchup for my Scyther. However, he does have Pokemons with Focus Sashes that will require some chip damage to be done before I can one-hit knock them out, so I decided to set up Stealth Rock with Skarmory first. Cacturne was one of the Pokemons I knew held a Focus Sash, so with Skarmory being paralyzed by the Thunder Punch, I decided to use a Drill Peck before switching to Scyther. Cacturne managed to paralyze Scyther on turn 1 as well, and I had to adjust my battle plan. Honchkrow did not get paralyzed and could take out the Cacturne and Crawdaunt. With the lowered speed, I used Noctowl as a pivot into Swellow for Absol and Facade him as well as Mightyena. Even though I was intimidated, it was a 95% chance to one-hit knock out the Mightyena, so although I were lucky to live the Foul Play which I didn't expect to have to tank, I was also unlucky to not take it out in one. A Stab Acrobatics would take out Shiftry, Sydney's final Pokemon. Phoebe did not have any Pokemons holding Focus Sashes or with the Sturdy ability, so specializing in Ghosts, it was a perfect matchup for my Honchkrow, which could really show off with its Super Luck ability, holding a Razor Claw and the heightened crit chance knife/move resulting in 100% likelihood of critical hits. It is something rather satisfying to have a pure 5-turn sweep on a 5 Pokemon team. Glacia had not only one, but 2 of the Frostlasses which could hit anything of mine super effective while also outspeeding anything that could take it out. One were holding Focus Sash with Stab Ice Beam which would do 74 to 88% to my Honchkrow if not critical hit, while the other could one-shot with Blizzard, but were holding a different item. So I knew that as long as I could dodge a critical, hit or freeze, I could take either route despite not breaking the Focus Sash before coming in with it through a knockdown pivot. I've also visited the move Relearner to get my Sucker Punch for Frostlasses, and with Night Slash for Glalie and Brave Bird for Walrein, I could make another quick sweep. For Drake, I would lead Swellow to take out Kingdra, Flygon or Altaria, and U-turn the Salamence into Pivot Noctowl to remove the effective Intimidat, and make another quick 1 Pokemon sweep. Once again I ran into some recording issues and I am sorry for failing to show yet another champion fight. The best I could do was to reenact the match with Pokemon Showdown move for move, and funnily enough, the RNG also worked out as I managed to get Skarmory burned by Scald, although the first one rather than second. With Stealth Rock up and Whiscash chip damaged, only Gyarados stood between me and a sweep, so I would send in Swellow first through a Pivot Noctowl as it had U-turned to get out from Gyarados' Intimidate, while Honchkrow could live any of his attacks in sweep. Milotic, Wylord, Tentacruel would go down to Swellow's Facade, while Honchkrow dealt with the remaining Gyarados, Ludicolo, and Whiscash. Aaron specializes in bug types and had a team full of Pokemons that would go down to my Swellow's Guts boosted Facade and Brave Bird, but first Skarmory needed to set up Stealth Rocks to break Focus Sash holders. Skarmory also took out Heracross, which had its Guts ability activated before making the pivot switch to Swellow through Togekiss. Brave Bird took out Scizor, Facade took out Vespiquen, Drapion, and Yanmega. With that, Aaron was defeated. Bertha specialized in ground typing with a team of Rhyperior, Glisker, Whiscash, Golem, and Hippowdon. I believe my Gyarados was faster than the Glisker, but apparently not. A Thunderfang critical hit was still not even close to one hit knocking out my Gyarados, but a Paralyze could have caused issues here. Golem has Sturdy and on top of this holds a Custap Berry, so I needed to chip damage before going in for the knockout here and decided to use Skarmory for this task as it was the least bothered by Stone Edges and could use the opportunity to set up Stealth Rock and Spikes first. But Bertha switched to Rhyperior. I knew Blisker would only take about 54% from a Rock Wrecker, so I wanted to use it to take out Rhyperior with 2 Earthquakes while it had to recharge. What I didn't know is that Rhyperior preferred to use Avalanche over Stab Rock Wrecker on Skarmory unless it saw the potential for knockout. I went back to Skarmory and had to stall it for a while and use that time to set up entry hazards. Eventually, I would use Rock Rex recharge turns to switch into Gyarados for the purpose of both lowering its attack and bait Rock Wreck until it was out of PP, unsure if this Rhyperior was holding Pasho Berry to reduce water damage. This would cause the AI to switch into Golem, which I could take out with Glisker. Hippowdon was next. By roosting, I would remove my 4x weakness to Ice Fawn, making me able to stall Hippowdon while making sure I could switch out with Glisker being as healthy as possible. Once it started to slack off, I went into Skarmory and kept drill pecking at it, trying to figure out at what point I could expect the next slack up before using that turn to come in with Gyarados. With one Dragon Dance up, he was set to sweep the remaining parts of Bertha's team with Waterfalls. This fight took longer than anticipated, as my initial plan for the fight was to set 2 dragon dances at Whiscash or Hippowdon with Gyarados to sweep the full team, only switching for Golem Sturdy. I would Ice Fang Glisker believing I was faster, and bait Rock Wrecker on Rhyperior, making it possible for Glisker to tank this and take it out with 2 Earthquakes if I wasn't already +2 on Gyarados. For Flint, I had Skarmory holding a Rost Berry in case of burn so that it could safely set up Stealth Rock and survive turn 1 before switching out turn 2 through Pivot Togekiss for Swallow Sweep. Rapidash went for Will-O-Wisp though, so in order to remove any risk involved with a critical hit Wild Charge from Rapidash taking out Togekiss, I decided to roost until it hit me. Once Swallow entered the field, it was in a position to facade its way through Flint's team, making this a much shorter fight than the previous one. Rapidash, Flareon, Magmortar, Infernape, Houndoom, they all went down to a single facade. I decided to lead Swellow for Lucian, who specializes in Psychic-type Pokemons. Swellow could take out either Mr. Mime, Espeon or Galate with a single hit, while also being faster than Alakazam and able to U-turn into Honchkrow to break the Focus Sash while also immuning the Psychic. This meant that Bronzong's Euroball was never a threat to Honchkrow, which could also take any of the other Pokemons out in a single Night Slash or Brave Bird, and Bronzong in 2 Night Slashes. Cynthia, the Sinnoh champion, led with Togekiss while I would lead with Swellow. Due to my low attack 4, I was just short of being sure to take it out with a Facade, and had to play it safe with a U-turn. Cynthia decided to switch into Garchomp turn 1, which gave me the option to decide how to go on about this. I went with Gyarados to lower its attack and switched a couple of times between Skarmory to resist Dragon Claw and Gyarados to resist Fire Blast while lowering its attack before Dragon Dancing to take it out with Ice Fang. Lucario is holding a Focus Sash and has Thunder Punch, which forced me to switch into Glisker and Earthquake it before U-turning to finish it and go back into Swellow. A low roll on Milotic with an 80% chance to one-hit knockout meant that I had to dodge the crit from Ice Beam to not lose Swellow. I finished it off with an U-turn and went into Skarmory. Cynthia went into Togekiss and we entered the stall part of the battle with Cynthia spamming air slashes with a high flinch ratio and me roosting to stay out of crit range with occasional drill peck and entry hazards. Once again, I've used more than 30 minutes on the Elite 4 Plus champion. I do have the battle log saved and can narrate how the rest of the fight went. I chipped Togekiss down to 70% with Skarmory before a flinch streak finally put me at 34%, which was just within the range of a critical max roll air slash, and I decided to switch through my pivot Togekiss holding an eject button into Honchkrow. One Night Slash finished the Togekiss and Cynthia sent in Roserade next. Brave Bird took it out in a single hit and Cynthia sent out her last Pokemon, a Spiritomb. I used Night Slash to crit for 83% expecting the Will-O-Wisp and knowing that it would not be enough to stop a second Night Slash crit from finishing Cynthia. Another region was completed and only one remains, Kanto. Lorelei has a team of Jinx, Lapras, Slowbro, Dugong and Cloyster all weak to my Scyther, which has Technician boosted Bug Bite and Close Combat. Once Skarmory had put out Stealth Rock to chip damage her team, I used Togekiss to tank an Ice Beam holding eject button to send in Scyther for a clean sweep. Jinx went down to a Bug Bite, Cloyster and Lapras went down to Close Combat, Slowbro would also go down to a Bug Bite, and finally Dugong went down to Close Combat. Three Elite 4 trainers remain and one champion. Bruno has a team of Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, Macham, Poliwrath, and Steelix. To defeat him, I decided to use my Scyther, which could take out any of the fighting types with his Technician Expert belt-boosted Aerial Ace. This left only Steelix remaining. As planned, I led with Scyther and took out Hitmonlee with Aerial Ace. Next up was Steelix. I switched to Skarmory to set up entry hazards and chip damage Steelix to break its sturdy ability. Once it was out of Stone HPPs, I safely switched to Gyarados and set up a couple of Dragon Dances while resisting Euro Balls. With +3 Gyarados, I was able to take out Steelix with Waterfall, Hitmonchan with Waterfall, Machop with Waterfall, and finally Poliwrath with Earthquake. Agatha, the Poison-type Elite Four member. Or that's what she used to be. Has a Crobat, Gengar, Weezing and Arbok, but also a Mismagius. She leads with Weezing against my Honchkrow, and unwilling to get Will-O-Wisp this early, I switch to Glisker as I don't want to take Flamethrower with Skarmory either. Glisker resists the Sludge Bomb, and deals about 50% damage to Weezing before taking a Will-O-Wisp. Next turn, Weezing swap into Crobat and I switch from Glisker to Skarmory. Skarmory sets up Stealth Rock before I switch to Gyarados only to be reminded that Intimidate doesn't work on inner focus Pokemons in this game. I go to Togekiss to use the eject button and swap into Honchkrow, which can take out the Crobat with a Sucker Punch. Gengar also goes down to a Sucker Punch, but his ability, Cursed Body, disables it from further use. Mismagius is faster than Honchkrow, but I suspect Thunderbolt, so I can easy switch into Glisker to immune that, then go back and resist either Shadow Ball or Energy Ball meant for Glisker before clicking Sucker Punch again. But I misclick, and luckily I didn't get crit. Honchkrow takes 67% from a Thunderbolt and one hit knocks out the Mismagius with Night Slash rather than Sucker Punch, which would have avoided the Thunderbolt altogether. Skarmory takes out the Arbok with a couple of Drill Pecks. Gyarados takes out the Weezing with a Waterfall. For Lance, I lead with Skarmory to set up Stealth Rock, while he lead with Aerodactyl and switch to Charizard turn 1. I went to Gyarados to resist the fire attack, set up Dragon Dance, and take it out. Lance sends in his own Gyarados, which lowers my attack to neutral again, and I take a breather to rethink the plan before finally using Togekiss. Two Air Slashes with first one flinching takes out the Gyarados, Aerodactyl returns. I go Skarmory to deal with the Rock Slide. Lance switches into Kingdra. Skarmory chip damaged the Kingdra with a Drill Peck. Lance sends in Dragonite. I switch into Togekiss, triggering the eject button to send out Honchkrow. Low roll on the Night Slassle leaves Dragonite barely alive to Thunderbolt before going down. Aerodactyl goes down to a Sucker Punch, and Kingdra goes down to another Sucker Punch. In the final battle with Gary, I lead with Skarmory to his Pidgeot to set up Stealth Rocks. He went Charizard. I switched into Togekiss, but he went for Will-O-Wisp. A Hurricane triggered the eject button, and I would send in Honchkrow and use Night Slash, getting him low before taking it out with a Sucker Punch. I switched into Skarmory to set up some more hazards at his Rhyperior and be taken by surprise as he used Heat Crash. As I switched to Gyarados to resist the Heat Crash, I was surprised to see him switching to his own Gyarados. And with his Rhyperior being slower than my Skarmory, this meant I would be -1 with Gyarados and his being neutral. This sent me into the think box, but without a solution, I had to make a decision. I did no longer see a way to make it through without a loss, and I had to sack something or risk the entire run, so I went into Scyther to resist a potential Power Whip and take Gyarados out or chip damage Rhyperior for a considerable amount, as it is baited with its 4 times effective rock moves while being weak to close combat. This put Rhyperior within range of Gyarados' Waterfall. For Leafeon, I would go into Skarmory. I would use Drill Pecks to make sure Leafeon would use Synthesis the same turn as I switched into my own Honchkrow, which could take out Leafeon in a single Brave Bird. Alakazam took hazard damage switching in, and I assumed it was an easy Sucker Punch turn, but it failed as he recovered. However, I knew I could resist its Shadow Ball and immune its Psychic, so I felt confident enough to click Sucker Punch 2 more times, taking Alakazam out. I did not want Honchkrow to get another low roll and go down when I were this close, so I sent in Gyarados to lower the attack of Pidgeot and take it out with an Ice Fang. And with that, the challenge is completed. I hope you enjoyed this series. I might do another typing in the future. Leave comments with what typings you would be interested in seeing, but keep in mind I want to be able to catch them in the wild, also early on in the story, or else I will have to bring random eggs for something which make it a different challenge, in my view. If you have any other feedback for this story, feel free to share them, both positive and negative. For the feedback I myself see coming, and I completely agree with you. Failing to record the champion fights like this makes such a run look suspicious and raise the question whether I did cheat to complete it. I can do nothing more than apologize for the inconvenience and the ruined viewing experience this has caused. I will try to make shorter clips in the future where this is not an issue. I also feel like I've spent too much time showing mind-numbing content with fights that doesn't raise any stakes, as there was never a genuine risk of anything going astray, and will focus more on the content where this is at risk in the future. Thanks for watching and enjoy your day. Oh, and if you remember the name of that 7th gym leader in Sinnoh, I always like to know.